I'm joined remotely via Zoom by Sammie Rayner, the Chief Program Officer of Community Forward SF. Sammie, thanks for being here this afternoon.
Thank you, George.
I would love to start with having you kind of walk the audience through what your model is of what you guys call the holistic full person services.
Of course. Yeah, at Community Forward, we're a network of programs that serve the homeless service community, focused really on the most vulnerable people in the homeless population. So whether you're a trans woman and looking for a safe place to just rest for a little while, we have a woman's place drop-in center, all the way through to a medical shelter facility. If you're imagine recovering from cancer or chemo and being in a homeless shelter, you're going to need more services and care. So we provide medical services in addition to just a shelter through a partnership with Department of Public Health, all the way to housing, and run 2 different housing programs in the Tenderloin. And the common thread, the holistic care that you mentioned, is really adding in a mental health, behavioral health, and medical health services on top of just a room and a place to stay, and recognize that you really have to meet individuals where they're at and provide services that support the very diverse range of needs of our community.
And then you guys also have a sobering center as well, which kind of gets back to the whole idea of housing first, as being a city policy, but then you also work with seniors. Can you share a little bit about that?
Of course. We're a 41-year-old agency, so have been around for a while, and actually one of the very, very first services that the agency provided was sobering and driving around vans, helping folks on the street who needed a safe place to sober up. And so we do have a sobering center where people can come and just have a safe place to rest, sleep, be under nurses' supervision while they're getting better. And then at the end of that, when they are able to kind of come out of and sober up, they're able to talk to a nurse, talk to a case manager, and think about other steps that they can take for their life. And we also, I think, didn't necessarily start focused on seniors, but the whole homeless population is aging. That's something that not a lot of people know. So majority of the folks that we serve are over 55 across all of our different programs.
And then the other thing I wanted to kind of get to was, how has COVID-19 really impacted your entire network of services?
It's hit each of our operations slightly differently. Particularly, I think one of the heaviest and hardest impacted places is our drop-in center. A women's place drop-in center serves about 3,000 women a year. And so as you can imagine, that's not an operation that can really run safely, having lots of women in one space, doing laundry, taking showers. And so it was really, extremely difficult when shelter in place set in, and I don't know if you know, but city shelters weren't taking new reservations. And so we're having lines of women coming like, hey, what am I supposed to do? And there was a really hard several weeks when we were actually just sheltering in place in our drop-in center. So women in plastic chairs for weeks until the city was able to open up hotels. And that has been a really exciting kind of lift of pressure off of us. Not just the drop-in center, but our shelters were also really too full to properly socially distance. So now that hotels are open to our clients, we've moved all of our folks who are over 60 out of the shelters and programs and into hotels. And our staff are actually moved with them and continuing to provide care and services in hotels. So that's been the biggest transition, is just, figuring out how to run these programs in hotels and keep people safe.
And so what are some of the other needs that you're seeing?
I think there's a lot of needs across the community. I think one of the biggest is just to continue this hotel push. there are not nearly enough people in safe spaces yet. We have been able to move a lot of our folks, but there's so many people who are still on the street who would normally be knocking on the door of a Women's Place drop-in center and getting services who aren't being served right now. So continuing to do that is important. Continuing to donate and provide personal protective equipment is really important. And I think just to honor and recognize the staff, not only of our agency, but of organizations across the community. I think now is a time when the public is recognizing that homeless services are public health services. Housing is healthcare, right? You can't be safe from a pandemic if you don't have somewhere to stay. So continuing to advocate to your supervisors, letting people know this is really the most important way to keep people safe. We all keep hearing over and over is to socially distance, right? And protect yourself. So advocating for everyone to be able to do that is really important.
And Sammie, how can people who are viewing this really help Community Forward SF? What do you guys need? Volunteers. I know you've launched a funding campaign, just like everybody else out there has been impacted. What can folks do to help?
We do have a fundraising campaign for who we call our frontline heroes. Community Forward has over 80 staff members who are on the ground daily checking people's temperature at the hotel or at the shelter to make sure that we're tracking for who might get COVID and keep people safe. So those are really the city's heroes. And so we're doing a fundraising campaign to provide hazard pay to recognize the incredible risk these staff are taking, who have their own families, their own communities that they also want to protect at home. And so needing to recognize that risk they're taking. And that campaign is on our website, communityforwardsf.org, and also on the Hand Up platform.
And what do you guys see as we eventually lift the shelter orders? What are some of the things that you and your team would like to see happen, as the shelter in place is actually lifted?
This pandemic has, I think, like I already said, has shown us that housing is healthcare, that we really need to recognize homelessness as a public health crisis even before COVID. And this change that has come about of placing people in hotels, I hope is one that will stick and will recognize that the old shelter model is flawed. It's really hard to provide for individual needs in really kind of overpopulated shelters. I mean, I don't know about you, but when you're not feeling well or when you're kind of at a low point in your life, if you're crowded with a bunch of other people and aren't necessarily getting individual care, it can be hard to advocate for yourself and your needs. And so that's the wave of change that we're hoping will continue after this is the broader recognition that it's not just about these individual folks' safety, it's our entire community's health that's at risk by not providing housing.
And then I think the other final question would just be, here we have a pandemic and kind of a meltdown in so many ways. What would you say are some of the positive things that could come out of the crises to support not only our unhoused community members, but society at large?
I'd love for us to buy a building, for the city to buy up buildings. I think that that could be there's going to be empty offices, empty spaces. I think that now would be an amazing time to really truly double down on the housing first model and to I guess continue to keep people in either the hotels or some other kind of housing model. And then I guess the other piece is just I hope that people will see our staff, see the public health workers who are, like, even before this pandemic, to me, they were heroes. They're out there every day providing and caring for the people who often are left invisible. And so I would love for, minimum wage increases or, anything that can help provide more of a living wage for people who are on the front lines so that their whole focus can just be on those clients and their needs, rather than how am I going to work 2 to 3 jobs to be able to do this work that I'm so passionate about.
Thank you, Sammie, for sharing your team's work today. And we'll make sure that we have all the contact information on the website and social media of how people can follow up with you guys and get engaged. And is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you would love to talk about today?
No, I think those are the key things. Keep reaching out to your neighbors and checking in, seeing where people can use help, but also look at the neighborhoods outside of maybe your immediate surrounding. And yeah.
Sammie, please stay safe out there and healthy, and give my best to Kara and to the whole staff. Thank you.
Thank you.